By now, you've almost certainly heard the news that Cardinal Robert Sarah has stepped down from his post in the Vatican. There's a lot of questions people have about this, so I'll attempt to answer at least a few of them as best I can in this short segment. For those wondering, he can still be selected as the next pope by his peers, and that remains a possibility for the next few years. Emphasis on few. I know that is probably the most pressing question many of you have, so I'll go over the basic story that we have today, and then how his papal chances work and the consequence of this move by Sarah and Francis, and what it has for the liturgy and the church broadly. As always, videos like this are made possible by the patrons and members of this channel, so a thank you goes out to them. Let's get into this. This story is so big, so watched by the world, that it was reported by the Wall Street Journal. Yes, that Wall Street Journal, which isn't exactly known for its constant Vatican coverage or reporting on things in the Catholic world. I mean, it's done a little bit of that, but it's not what it does. And that should give you pause if you didn't think this was any kind of a large story. Note how they characterize this story in the headline, which reads, Pope Francis removes conservative African cardinal from Vatican post. Now, I intensely dislike using secular language like that to describe the divide in the church, especially when it comes to sort of what we would just call normal secular discourse on things in the city of man. But they are closer to the truth than most Catholics would accept because, here's my unpopular statement. Cardinal Sarah is not a traditionalist, not in the real sense of the phrase. He has long advocated for a supposed mutual enrichment of the liturgy, where both the Novus Ordo and the traditional Latin Mass somehow learn from one another, which to me sounds like an invitation to change the traditional Latin Mass, which immediately removes him from the ranks of the traditionalists. That having been said, I do think he is one of the best bishops in the church today. I'm going to say that again. I do think he is one of the best bishops in the church today, and I do believe he has a true and honest love for the Lord and for the faith. The Wall Street Journal story reads in this way, and I have to play with the language a bit to make it okay for our host's sensibilities. Quote, Pope Francis accepted the resignation of Cardinal Robert Sarah as head of the Vatican's Office for Liturgy, removing an outspoken conservative and possible future pope from the ranks of Vatican leadership. The Holy See press office announced Saturday that Cardinal Sarah had stepped down. No successor has been named. The Cardinal submitted his resignation as required by church law when he turned 75 on June 15th of last year. But the Pope frequently lets cardinals serve 2 or 3 years past that age, though not past 80. Last June, the Cardinal wrote on Twitter, For my part, I am happy to continue with my work at the Vatican. In accepting Cardinal Sarah's resignation, the Pope has removed a subordinate, out of step with his approach to the liturgy, the James Martin issue, and relations with the redacted world. The Cardinal is a hero to many conservative Catholics, some of whom see him as a future pontiff. He will still be able to vote in a conclave to select a pope until he turns 80. End mostly quote. Now, there's 2 important points in that article, the rest of which you can easily find on the Wall Street Journal website, or linked in my show notes at my website, returntotradition.org. Again, that's returntotradition.org, and I can't post a link directly in the comments because of some of the rules our hosts have about these things. Now, the first point is that Sarah submitted his notice last summer, as usual when he turned 75. That is an arbitrary rule that I believe was set in the years after the council by Paul VI, so that he could essentially remake the hierarchy in his own image. Mandatory retirement ages in the church are not a traditional thing in the slightest, but are one of the modernist innovations in the church, at least when it comes to the bishops and the cardinals. And they often bring us these kinds of outcomes. This does make me wonder what happened in the Vatican for Francis to now accept Sarah's resignation when it was turned in last summer. I suppose we'll find out, and we do have a hint here at what some of that is. And that is that Cardinal Sarah's big role in the Roman Curia was in the office of the liturgy. There he was one of the main minds in questions about the development of liturgy and all related things. An idea of why Sarah's move was accepted, or perhaps now forced by Francis, comes from the reporting by the once great but now definitely modernist, The Tablet. The channel, by the way, Ascent of Mount Carmel, again, Ascent of Mount Carmel, frequently has excerpts from The Tablet presented in videos from when that outlet was a stalwart teacher and defender of the faith. Now, not so much, as evident by the tone and language employed in their reporting on the Cardinal Sarah story. Feast your eyes or ears on this. Quote, Cardinal Sarah was appointed by Francis in 2014. He stayed in office for more than 6 years despite making public interventions on the liturgy, which were at odds with the Pope's desire to implement the liturgical reforms of the Second Vatican Council. The Pope publicly rebuked Sarah for suggesting that priests start to celebrate Mass ad orientem, or with their backs to the congregation, and for alleging that the relationship between the Holy See and bishops on liturgical translations is like that of a parent towards a child's homework or an academic supervisor to a student. It also took the Cardinal's office more than a year to drop a 370-word decree allowing for the ladies to be included in the Holy Thursday foot-washing ritual, something Francis had specifically requested. End quote. I had to change the language a tiny bit there, again, to meet the standards of our totally fair and lovely hosts. I truly love them. I really do. But did you see what they did there? It was subtle. First, they implied that everything liturgically that Francis is wanting to do, whether it's the changing of the Our Father or the creation of an Amazonian rite of Mass, or all the things that make us cringe, is merely the implementation of the changes requested by the Second Vatican Council. And to a certain degree, they're right. And in others, they are definitely right in regarding the stated intentions of the modernists who ran the council, based on what they said after the council, and I'll talk to you about that stuff later. But here we see the tablet throwing the good cardinal under the bus, making it sound as if this was all because he was a strident adversary of the Pope, when in reality, Cardinal Sarah was a servant of the Vatican and the post-conciliar church, not a traditionalist, but perhaps the best of the contemporary hierarchy. And all you got to do to see some of that is go to Cardinal Sarah's Twitter feed, where you will see him frequently retweeting the Pope and tweeting at the Pope nothing but praise. Just, some food for thought here. Now, to address what many people wanted to know. Can he still be Pope? Yes. The arbitrary rules set by either Paul VI or John Paul II limit the participation of cardinals in the papal conclave to the age of 80. Sarah is about 75 and a half years old, meaning there is a conclave in the next 4.5 years. He can participate in the process that selects the next pope. I just don't believe he has much of a shot of getting the nod, given that Francis has selected the bulk of the cardinals who will participate in that process. I would give a Tagle or a Zubi or a Supich a better chance at getting the nod than Cardinal Sarah. And no, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano has literally no chance in the next conclave. He isn't even a cardinal, nor does the auxiliary bishop from Kazakhstan. I mean, he's an auxiliary bishop. That sort of thing is wishful thinking. And short of a cataclysm that results in there just not being many options in the next conclave, those men won't be named pope. Sarah, maybe Burke have chances, albeit very small ones. But as the meme says, you're saying there's a chance. Of immediate concern are going to be two things. Further changes to the Novus Ordo that make it even more modernist, even less reverent than it already is, and the fate of the traditional Latin Mass, which is up in the air. On both accounts, we shall see. I'll be keeping an eye on who the next pope or person to hold the liturgy post in Rome is, and the thought that keeps coming to mind is that Cardinal Supich has been traveling to Rome with rumors swirling that he'll be getting a job in the Roman Curia soon. Now, wouldn't that be a depressing hoot if Supich replaced Sarah? If that's the case, then you really better figure out your liturgical backup plans, because things will get very interesting on that front moving forward. And no, I'm not saying that Supich is definitely getting the post, but he has been traveling there, and rumors have swirled that he is getting a post in Rome in the very near future. For those who think this means Cardinal Sarah will no longer contribute to Catholic discourse, remember that Bishop Gracida is 97 years old and still publishing work on his own website. As long as Cardinal Sarah remains well, he will do the same thing himself, although he seems to prefer books. So, you'll get more books from him in the future. He never really weighed in all that much on the various debates in the church, but he did on rare occasion. Maybe he'll begin to do so with greater frequency now. Then again, he may not want to rock the boat on his own papal chances, which I believe are slim anyway, given that Francis has selected 57% of the cardinals who will participate in the next conclave, and that number is about to go up, by the way, which makes a Francis II much more likely than a Benedict XVII, which is what Sarah would probably amount to anyway. But like I said, the biggest loss in all of this is not of a quiet but forceful voice who has an honest love for our Lord and His Church, because he will continue to be that until our Lord calls him home. Make no mistake about that. The loss is in this role in preventing the worst outcomes in the liturgy from being accomplished by Francis. What will happen next on all that is now up in the air, and those of us who don't want to see the liturgy further degraded no longer have a voice in Rome. What do you think of all this? Have you read any of Cardinal Sarah's books? If so, let me know what you think of them in the comments, please. As always, please pray for the Church. Thank you for listening. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.